Thanks for staying with us, everybody. A new book about Chinatown is seeking to entertain and educate through some stunning images and in-depth stories. The coronavirus pandemic has certainly taken its toll on businesses, and in order to keep this vibrant community alive, the authors are telling stories of real people through pictures and in-depth reporting. Joining us now to talk about San Francisco's Chinatown are photographer Dick Evans and journalist and author Kathy Chin Leong. Welcome to the program, to the both of you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dick, let's start with you because this project began well before the pandemic began. What was your goal in taking these images? It's all part of a series you worked on.
Yes, it is. It's the third neighborhood in San Francisco for which I've done a pretty detailed documentary photography book. And this one was started the end of 2017 and mostly through 2018 and 2019. And the purpose, it's a nonprofit project. All three books have been that. But the purpose is really to point out for the people who live in Chinatown, point out the pride that they should have in what's there. And for the people that don't live in Chinatown, maybe to point out the historical significance, the cultural significance, and to educate people a little more on Chinatown, the challenges that it faces, the social issues, the social justice issues that it faces, and the historical discrimination and challenges that it's faced. But equally important to talk about the fact that it's been a very resilient community that survived for 170 years, and perhaps crises deeper than this one, which gives me optimism for the future as well.
Yeah, it does for me all the same. You know, you funded this out of your own pocket. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But first, I want to get to Kathy, because Kathy, you're a journalist, and like me, you have followed the struggles of Chinatown before, and especially during the pandemic, there has been this dramatic decline in business because of xenophobia and racism. You conducted well over 100 interviews for this book. Did you change your approach when the onset of COVID happened?
I didn't so much change my approach, but it just drew me deeper into the community. I did a series of interviews at the beginning of COVID and found out that Chinatown was not hit as hard as other communities, which was really amazing because the community banded together. The CCDC banded together to make sure that the SRO residents had a place to go to pick up free meals. So there was more in-depth reporting, but I didn't change my approach. I go into it with eyes wide open. I don't have any preconceived notions. I just want to hear what people have to say.
And Kathy, while I have you, something I've noticed in my own reporting is that sometimes Asian Americans are a little reluctant to share their stories, to get too personal, maybe the older generation. Did you run into any of that during your reporting?
I think what really helped us a lot was the fact that we had entry. We were introduced by people who knew the people already. So when you have that introduction, people open right up. And so once you have the trust there, it is quite available to you. We had an SRO resident had us come inside her home, sat us down, gave Dick and I plenty of snacks to eat, and shared with us family photos. We didn't even know who were in these photos, but she was so happy that we took interest in her and we gained her trust immediately.
That's remarkable. I think sometimes all people want is to be listened to be heard. Dick, this goes along with my next question because, like you mentioned, this is part of a series of work that you've done showcasing these neighborhoods in San Francisco. Tell me about the success of your project in the Mission and how that helped the community there and what you plan for the Chinatown community with this book.
Yeah, well, in fact, the success of the Mission book was what encouraged me to do another book and do Chinatown. The Mission book is in its third printing. When I went into that project, I looked, as I did in the Chinatown case, for a local nonprofit that would be helpful to work with and to make introductions, as Kathy mentioned. So with the Mission, I happened to have already known Presida Eyes and Susan Cervantes, the founder of that. So I talked with them, and they were my partner in the Mission. And they opened many doors for me. They sold many books in their own little store and a significant amount of The money from sales went to them. So it was a win-win in that regard. And they had a chance to also, be showcased a bit, as well as the work in the mission, the mural work, which they were all very happy to see showcased.
Yeah, that's
And
remarkable.
in fact, the success of the book triggered the group of women who had painted the mural for the Women's Building, which is a very iconic, now a historical monument nationally. But they were so encouraged. All 7 of them are still alive. They banded together and produced a book on the Women's Building and the mural masterpiece that went into that. And I helped them a bit with some fundraising and donated any photos I had of it. But they did a fabulous job on their own. It's also been quite successful. It was a very impressive documentation of that.
I love the chain reaction of goodness that has come out of your projects. And speaking of the Chinatown project as well, Kathy, what can viewers do to help the Chinatown community based off of what you experienced during this process? And also share with us some characters that you particularly enjoyed working with.
Well, I think, first of all, the thing that they can do, go on our website, ChinatownBookSF.com, and I wrote just this morning 7 different things that you can do to support Chinatown. And a few of them include buying things online from Chinatown vendors. Go to your corporations and see if they would support the nonprofits that help out Chinatown. Go there in person, take a tour. There are tours available now during COVID in Chinatown that are socially distant and mask friendly. So if you go there, I did my best to buy all my Christmas presents in Chinatown. You'd be surprised the wonderful things you could buy there as gifts, housewares, even produce and groceries. So there's a lot to be had when you go there. And what was your second question, Dion?
Yeah, real quickly, can you share with us a character that you enjoyed showcasing? Anybody in mind that sticks out?
I really enjoyed Reverend Norman Fong. If you're out there, I just hope you're listening and watching, because he has such a passion for the community as the former executive director of the Chinatown Community Development Center that supports all the elderly in these SROs. And he's an activist, and yet he's a reverend, and yet he's also a member of a rock band. So I think he just had so much color to him and was not shy. He said he's landed in jail so many times for the right cause, and I was truly inspired by him.
Oh, that is so memorable. I'll have to leaf through and find that section, read it after the newscast. Thank you both, Kathy and Dick, so much for joining us.